Now tonight I want to talk about what I think is Games Workshop's best ever rule set. Now this is my personal opinion, you maybe don't agree with me, maybe nobody agrees with me, but I'm going to tell you why I think it's this particular game and tell you all the reasons why I think that. Now Games Workshop have been around for quite some time now and they have made numerous amount of games. I'm going to list some of them now. We've got things like Gorka Morka, we've got Rogue Trader, we've got Warhammer Fantasy Battles, we've got 40k, we've got Kill Team, Mordheim, Adeptus Titanicus, we've got Aeronautica Imperialis, we've got Blood Bowl, we've got Blitz Bowl, we've got Dreadfleet, Space Hulk, Silver Tower, Betrayal at Calth, Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game. We've got Go Chosen, Necromunda, we've got Warcry, we've got Blitz Bowl, we've got Shadow War Armageddon, we've got War of the Ring, we've got Warhammer Underworlds as well. That's just a name but a few. Warcaster, somebody just mentioned at the start of the stream. That's just a name but a few. So there's plenty of games to choose from there. And I'm sure everybody has their own personal favourites. But I'm sure for most of you, it comes as no surprise that my personal favourite, and the game I think above all of those, not even just kind of like marginally, the game above all of those that is the best rule set that Games Workshop has ever written is Warcry. And the reason I say this is that there's a number of different reasons, and I'm going to go over those ones. I would say that Warcry for me is what I would call my Rick Astley game. And let me build on that. The reason I call it my Rick Astley game is because the rules are just so simple. And in the words of Rick Astley, you know the rules and so do I. It's one of those things that every time I come back to play this game, I just remember the rules, and the people I'm playing against just remember the rules. It's not one of them where we've got to dig out the books and go, how do you set up again? How do you get started? How does this work? If you haven't played it for a little while, it really is. It's just a really simple rule set to get your head around. Every game I play of Warcry is me enjoying the game. It's me having fun playing the game against my opponent, not trying to remember the rules, not trying to look through the book. How do I do this? How do I do that? Can I do that? Can I do this? It just works. It's just straightforward. The other point, or another point, is stat lines are just really simple. You've got like sort of your toughness, you've got how many wounds you've got sort of what damage your weapons do. It's just really straightforward, how much your movement is, that kind of stuff. There's none of this sort of roll into wound and roll into hit, roll into wound and roll into save, and sort of a number of different modifiers. It's just really, really simple. And because of this, there are no really kind of negative play experiences to the game. There's never that point where you kind of you roll to hit, and then you roll to wound, and then your opponent rolls to save and they miss it, and then all of a sudden there's some kind of strange rule that says, oh, I get an extra save roll, and then after all that nothing happens. I find that happens a lot in Kill Team. I like Kill Team's rules, but there's too many dice rolls for what eventually sort of 9 times out of 10 ends up becoming a bit of a disappointment. There's something happens that means that you can't get to do the thing that you want to do. What I find in Warcry is you 9 times out of 10 you get to do what you want to do. It's just that you might not do as much damage as you'd like to. The fact that the damage profiles are designed that you inflict a lot of damage upon your opponent, and that because of that, the amount of wounds that sort of models get is beefed up. It creates those kind of cinematic moments. The way the rules work is so kind of intuitive that you can kind of run across, you can climb up something, you can jump off it, and you can come down and hit your opponent. And the last thing you want to do is when you get to that point is just go, oh yeah, and I saved it. Like yeah, you hit me, you tried to wound me, but I saved it. I was all right. It didn't get through my armor. That's kind of a negative play experience. It's a bit of an anticlimax for those cinematic moments. If every time you watched a movie and it got to that point where basically somebody's kind of like sort of sneaks around, comes up behind them, swings an axe, and then they go, oh no, you missed. That's kind of disappointing. Warcry doesn't have those moments. It only has those cinematic moments. It's just that it takes a few of them to take somebody down. And because of that high damage stat and the high wound stat is quite a satisfying mechanic. As I said before, the game feels like you're playing out a story, more so than probably most games I've played. And I think sometimes is a lot of the time it comes down to how well you know the rules. If you know the rules really well, you can probably get into the storyline much better. So if you play 40k, for example, and you've played for years and you're not really thinking about the rules, maybe you can have those battles in your head. You can kind of see how that game plays out. I kind of get a similar feeling from Walking Dead as well. You actually do feel that kind of cinematic vibe from it. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact is that the rules don't get in the way of a fun and enjoyable play experience. Another thing as well that I really like about Warcry is there haven't been constant stat changes. So it's not like basically they've released the game, all of the cards come out for the different warbands, and then it's been a case of, oh, by the way, all of these stats have changed, and now that's not the same. And then there's another update that comes out a little bit further down the line. As far as I can remember, there haven't been, I think there's been maybe one when there was an error on a card, but there hasn't been like a constant kind of update to the rules. Now, part of this is because the game is very kind of fun and narrative in nature. It's not meant to be mega competitive, and therefore actually you don't really need to tweak the stats just to try and kind of balance everything out, because the game isn't perfectly balanced, but that's part of the appeal. And the fact that you can just pick up that deck of cards or that set of cards, or whether that be kind of get them in the Tome of Champions books, you can then just kind of, you can play with those models and not worry about trying to keep on top of stuff. There's also no real need to keep referring back to the rulebook to look at like stats and tables to compare stuff. There's the very easy stat about sort of strength versus toughness, and other than that, there's nothing to reference in the book. Many GW games have a lot of kind of sort of strength v toughness tables in the past, or they have sort of like when you're looking at weapon profiles and looking all these different things up, especially when you're relatively new to a game, unless you really are on top of it, on top of the game, and you've been playing it for a while and there haven't been any stat changes, you will have to keep referring back to what's my weapon profile, what's the toughness of your model, how many wounds has it got, all those kind of things. I just find that Warcry has everything on the cards, and it just makes the game super slick. There's also no real major list building. If you're like me and you're someone that doesn't necessarily find list building the most interesting and fun part of the game, then this is perfect. You can pretty much buy a warband box and just field those 10 models, whatever it is inside the box. Just field them as they are. You can start to list build, especially if you're getting into some of the AOS factions, or you want to start buying multiple boxes to try and sort of tweak things out. You can like sort of list build a bit more and go a bit deeper, but there's no real need to do it if you just want to play for fun. The other beauty as well for me personally is that there's then not multiple different weapons to worry about. So it's not like, well, I'm going to have this model and I'm going to take this upgrade and I'm going to take this weapon and I'm going to take this magic ability. There's none of that to worry about for this game. If you enjoy that kind of stuff, there are plenty of other games out there that you can do that. It's just that this game has very purposefully streamed all that back, and again, it just adds another layer to everything's on the cards in front of you, and you're just playing the game. Another big sort of proponent for this one as well is it plays on a small play area. It was one of the things I really loved about Kill Team. I loved the fact that when Kill Team came out, they really sort of sized down the board area, and we had some great games playing Kill Team because of that smaller area. We had a table at my house where basically kind of we were playing sort of me and a friend were playing against each other one side of the table, another couple of friends were playing on the same table, and actually having everybody playing quite close together actually built up the kind of the fun and the enjoyment of the game. Kill Team has its issues, and I might go into that in another video, but Warcry gives that exact same feel as well. The smaller play area and the really kind of succinct rules give it like a shorter player time. That means if you have got a bit of an unbalanced game, you're not playing it for very long. If you feel that it's sort of that it's out of balance, try and kind of have your small wins within that game. But just you can stop the game if you want and reset it up and have another scenario, do something different. It's not like you have to play out a 2 or 3 hour game to get to the end to find, well, actually, for the last hour of that, I knew I couldn't win, but I felt bad not playing it out kind of thing. And another thing I want to say is that the optional content for Warcry is optional. You don't have to buy the Tome of Champions if you don't want to. If you don't need the card stats or anything like that that's in there, you don't want the extra kind of narrative missions, you don't have to buy Tome of Champions. If you don't want to buy the Monsters and Mercenaries book, you don't have to buy it. That original Warcry rulebook is still as relevant now as it was when it came out over a year ago. And everything is in there from a rules perspective that you need. Now, of course, now it's not that easy to pick up the game as a box set. You can buy all of the bits separately. But we do have very soon, and I'd expect probably back end of this month, I think we'll start to see the Warcry Catacombs set, which is the new starter set that's coming out. And I'm really excited about that. Not only does it build upon an already really exciting rule set for me, it also adds something in that kind of underground dungeons. And I know some people have said they're not so keen on the kind of what looks like Kill Team Arena, kind of quite flat set out. I just think it's another option. It's something else. It's another way to play Warcry using those original rules and having a few tweaks to give you extra kind of sort of fighting in the dungeons, if you like. And again, it's optional. If you're enjoying what you already have, or you just want to dip your toe in and kind of just play with those standard rules, that's all you need. This is an optional extra, and you don't have to have it if you don't want to. Now, from a rules perspective, as I've mentioned, I'm a really big fan of Warcry, and I honestly think it is their best rule set that they've ever done. However, that doesn't make Warcry the perfect game. There are a few things. One of the things is there is quite some imbalance in the game, and I think that some of the like the AOS factions, if you like, things like when Stormcast came in, they were the only faction that had ranged weapons at the time when they first came in, and that was quite sort of imbalancing. You can do a lot of things to overcome that kind of stuff. Placement of terrain, where the terrain is laid out, the mission that you're doing, can all kind of negate some of that stuff. But it's not necessarily sort of mega balanced out of the box, if you like. If you're just playing for a bit of fun, that's not really that much of an issue. But if you're somebody that takes your game in a bit more seriously, maybe it is for you. And I would also add, I'm not a huge fan of the sales mechanism of selling the cards. I think that the cards themselves should have just always been available, or they should have been available to kind of to download, to print and play or something like that. Because I think making them and then not selling them anymore, I think is a bit of a disaster, if I'm honest. I know they come out in the kind of Tome of Champions later on, but there's a lot of cards, I think, that I'm not sure actually if there's any more that's out of print now, or sort of are not available now. As it's been a while since I bought any cards for the warbands that I wanted. But I think that kind of model of not having the cards either always available or doing short runs of them, I wasn't a big fan of. So that's really why I think Warcry is. I mean, there are other games that I know get talked about a lot. There are games like Middle-earth Strategy Battle, which people will say is the best game that Games Workshop, they get best rule set. There's a lot of things I don't like about Middle-earth Strategy Battle. It's just not the kind of game for me. I don't like the way you come into combat and then you roll to see who wins the combat, and then you roll to see how to damage. I'm not really overly keen on that one. I'm not keen on the rules where basically you have to roll to kind of... I can't even remember what it's called now, but if you're shooting like over a fence or something, you roll to see if you hit, and then you roll to see if it gets over the fence or something. I forget what it's called. I think it's called an in the way roll or something. There's a lot of dice rolls in Middle-earth Strategy Battle that I just don't particularly like. And again, there's all sorts of weird stats with kind of magic, and sort of special named characters have extra stats that other characters don't have. I just find it quite sort of overly complex. I think it's probably better than 40k from a rule set perspective, but it's not instantly accessible in the way that Warcry is. Warcry, if that starter set was still available now, is hands down the best introduction game to miniatures, I think, for anybody. I think it just gives you the taster of the quality of the GW models, and it also gives you a really simple rule set to get your head around to first dip your toe in and try the game. So that's why I think Warcry is the best rule set Games Workshop has ever made. Why not drop your comments down below and let me know which one you think is, or tell me why you agree with me or why you disagree with me. I'd love to know what you think.
Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.